Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns for day 16 of Around the League in 30 days as we make a stop in Miami to check on the Marlins to see if they still have a pulse because holy moly, this roster is not good. My name
I
is
didn't realize they
Tyler.
had a pulse in the first place, to be honest with you.
This
Glove,
you.
glove, fish, fish.
My name is Tyler. My co-host today, Will and Bobby, as we look at the Marlins in 2025, which is not a pretty sight. Let's look at that roster.
Oh,
If
look at the
you
daycare. Oh, they look cute.
if you see a lot of names you don't recognize,
This
there's
is
a reason
like
for
your
that.
first day at preschool, and you're just like, all right, let's learn everybody's names.
Xavier Edwards, who actually had a pretty nice season last year in the 70 games, he was there leading it
But
off.
also not recognized in the picture by our
Not
lovely host here, by the way.
I don't know ball, I guess. I really don't. Connor Norby coming over from the Orioles. They're at third base. Will be starting there this
Last
year.
year.
Last year, I know, but I'm talking about. I still want to say something about him.
Who?
Jesus Sanchez, Jonah Bride. Jonah Bride. I can't even say these names
Jonas.
properly.
I'm just
Matt,
going to be an owl. Who? Who?
Matt Mervis comes over. The other guys I'm
Who?
just not talking about, and I'm not talking about the acquisitions on the bench. You cannot make me. Looking at the rotation, a little bit
Make them.
better. Their rotation a little bit better. Sandy Alcantara comes back, so that is a big boost for them. This year, Ryan Weathers, Edward Cabrera, who I know Will absolutely hates when we talk about MLB The Show, but that right there is an MLB The Show legend. Holy moly, was he nasty in MLB The Show. If he could be that nasty in real life, he would win the Cy Young every year. Max Meyer and Cal Quantrill, the
All our
only.
scouting is from MLB The Show. We truly know nothing.
It really is. Cal Quantrill, the only notable acquisition really to this team, is in there, the fifth slot. And their bullpen is not good. And
Who?
that and and that is your 2025 Marlins roster as a whole. It's funny, we just came on. Wow, voice crack. We just came off.
Woof.
I'll put my hands up for that one. We just came off recording an episode about the Dodgers, and God, this couldn't be any different. I was at a loss for words for how good that team was. I'm at a loss for words how bad this team is, and it's like, can they will they be the worst roster in baseball in 2025?
Yes.
Okay, how many wins? Or 50?
I haven't really thought about that. All I can say is I don't think they'll reach 50.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think there's some stuff to like.
There's stuff. There's something in there.
There's some stuff to like about their rotation again. I mean, Alcantara, Cabrera, Yuri Perez will be coming back sometime this season. I think at this point they said around the All-Star break because he had TJ. Braxton Garrett's out for the year, which kind of sucks for their rotation. Cal Quantrill was okay last year, pitching in Colorado. So I guess if you look anything about this team or you like anything about this team, it would be that. But my goodness, this roster, this batting lineup is tough. I mean, again, Xavier Edwards was good when he was with the team last year, and you have some guys that have potential, but like it's hard to look at this and be
It is very hard.
it's hard to be happy about this roster. I really don't know what to say outside of I think this will be the worst team in baseball. I like the White Sox roster over this one by a mile. And then the question I guess I have for you, Will, is, I as a Pirates fan have had a lot of frustration about, oh, my team doesn't bring in players and stuff like that. But I mean, this team is another team that just refuses to kind of bring in any sort of talent. I know they're
Actually, I
rebuilding,
don't think
but
that's the issue. It's not bringing in talent, it's keeping the talent.
yeah.
Let's be honest. They were in the postseason 2 years ago, and they had Luis Ariz leading the way. They had Josh Bell at first. They had Jake Berger at third. Like, they weren't half bad. And the big reason they got in was that their starting pitching staff, as you pointed out. was really good then. I mean, they didn't even have the best season from Alcantara, and he was hurt by the time they got to the postseason, but they were still led by Luzardo, Garrett, Perez, and Cabrera, and they were on a lot of people's choices as being an upset win that series versus the Phillies. The problem is that the next season they started getting rid of everyone. It was like, you were just in the freaking postseason. What are you doing? And they are dumping guys. Like, this isn't the first time this happened, too. Back in like 2012 or 2011 or whatever, they signed Mark Burley, Jose Reyes, a bunch
Oh
of
my
veterans
God, yeah.
that looked like this was going to be the step in the next direction. They had a prime Giancarlo Stanton, and that lasted the whole part of like one, maybe 2 years before they started dumping guys out. This team just does not stick to whatever their game plan is. They go young, but then they just get rid of it. Like, there is no window of opportunity. And right now they're in the middle of, they just traded away practically all the players that they had left who had any sense of like limited like team control, and everyone now except for Quantrill, I guess, really is on the team through 2027. But all this is probably going to do is they're going to see if they become a playoff team in 27 or 28, maybe then sign a playoff guy or two, or I should say a free agent or two, to help them in the playoffs, and then they'll probably dump them again. It's just they have the biggest commitment issues ever.
So they have, I'm looking at this, and this is actually surprising. Like, I knew this team was young. They have two guys in their entire projected lineup roster, their 40 man for this season, that are over the age of 30. And barely, it's Quantrill, who's 30 in a month right at this point in time, and Anthony Bender. Like, this team is young. 'Cause I was gonna ask you, Will, like, all right, so if they are gonna suck this year, which they're going to, like, who are they gonna trade away this year, to start building up again? But like, who do you even have to trade away? Like
They
Alcantara,
don't have
but
anyone to trade away anymore. No, I mean,
uh,
basically your only trade chips are Quantrill and maybe Alcantara.
yeah.
Even Alcantara, you have through 2026 with an option for 2027. I imagine you're gonna pick that option up no matter what. So there's really nothing left. I mean, I think I've heard Jesus Sanchez as a potential person they could trade, but they still have him as well through 2027. So I think you're kind of stuck with what you got for the time being, and maybe if they feel like they want to trade away Kantara or someone else that they don't think, if they don't think they're going to be ready or happy with the team they have in a couple of years, then that's their best bet for getting a haul in. And that, I guess, yeah, that's really the reasoning for Alcantara, is because you're going to get quite a haul if you trade him. But there's really no one left to trade. See where everyone else, how everyone else develops. See what young guys you have in the system that can make it to the majors and go from there.
I mean, the way I look at it is, obviously he's a great pitcher, but if when when do we realistically think they're going to be competitive? Because he's going to be 30 this year, right? So it's like, whenever they're going to be competitive is when you'd want a guy like him, but what is he going to be? 33, 34, 35? So
I
I think,
guess.
I mean, it would make sense if they were to move on from him at this point. But as you said, it's crazy. I mean, they were literally a playoff team 2 years ago. And it's funny you bring up like that Burley, like that offseason, because I think that was the last really big offseason the Marlins had that I can think of, unless I'm just completely forgetting, where it was like, oh, this team could like compete for like the division this year. Like, I remember when they brought those guys in, it was like a big deal, and they never lived up to expectations. But that's the Marlins are not ever like they got into the playoffs, of course, 2 years ago, but there wasn't like these huge expectations on them, and it just feels like they're another team that's always in limbo year after year. And then like you look at their future, it's not all that great. Like, they have a couple guys, they have three guys in the MLB top 100. The first guy being at number 41. So like, again, they're a team that, like the Angels, who we just talked about tonight as well, that they don't have a good roster and they don't have the greatest farm system. So what in the world do they do?
Pray. They're out of options. Like, spend money or just cross your fingers, and you got to basically take it year to year to see how each of the players develop.
Yeah.
I think that their starting pitching could still surprise at some point. and be enough to keep them in games. But if that's the case, then they're going to hope that it's a combination of young guys taking big steps that you just can't predict because you don't know where they're at right now, since everyone truly is like at a blank slate, it feels like, after like the third spot in the order. And the bullpen has years where those bullpen arms are able to, um, they have those good years. They don't have the coin toss, and it turns out it's a crap year for them.
So this is kind of like a hypothetical question that might be hard for you to answer, but looking at this roster now, looking at like what they really, I mean, they do. I shouldn't say they do have some promise, right? But like, there's always been this
What?
there's always been this complaint about like, oh, they don't draw fans and stuff like that. Like, do you think the future of baseball in Miami's in jeopardy, like anytime in the near
There should
future?
never be a major league team in Miami and Florida in general, aside from spring training. You don't go to Florida to watch baseball unless it's March. You go to Florida to go to the beach. Let's be honest.
I mean, Miami's such obviously a great city, and uh, they
Miami
have.
Beach.
I was gonna say they have great beaches, the weather's great, but they draw like five people a game, so it's hard. I don't know. I mean, it's just not promising. Again, they do have
Get
some
him out of
guys
there.
that could potentially take steps in 2025. Connor Norby, Sanchez, Jesus Sanchez, Edwards. Like, what do you kind of see from these guys? Because we're basing this off of projections, right? And it's tough to say, but it is some guys with some talent. I'll say that. I really
Norby
don't
and
know what to
Edwards are
say. Do you hear me stumbling over myself? Like, this is how the White Sox didn't even make me do this. I don't know what to say about this team.
because it's truly a bunch of people with absolutely no experience, or at best like a year or two. You pretty much have Sanchez as the only option really in the lineup that's had like 3 years of experience, and it's been a little up and down for him. Though he could probably give you 20 home runs in a season if he stays healthy. I liked what Norby did last year in his first little stint in Miami, and it actually looked like it was almost. I think it was in the end a bad move for the Orioles to get Rogers and trade away Norby and Stowers, even though I know that they had a plethora of outfield options, and so that was someone they could get rid of. But I guess Norby, seeing with what Holiday did last year and Mayo's little stint in the major leagues not going great and having injuries to Westberg, so maybe having Norby last year would have been beneficial to them. But in this little stint where he had a 445 slugging percentage and 7 home runs, I think that he could take a decent jump this year. Though he'll still probably just be mid 250s or 260s hitter. And Edwards, as you said, I think at the beginning of the episode, he hit really well last year, hitting over 300, and he seems like he can definitely be a good leadoff hitter. As he did have a 397 on base percentage to go with his 328 average last year. So at least you have someone to maybe be, or two guys that are potential table setters at the top of the order. Sanchez to me isn't really a true number 3 hitter. You just kind of go with him because you got no one else. And so you see if he gets a bit of power behind him. Cabrera had some nice numbers. I believe it was 3 years ago, with an ERA in the low threes. Then he slipped the next year with an ERA in the mid fours. Then he got hurt for a bit last year. So he's someone that I do think could take a good step and get his ERA back into the upper threes. But I mean, without much to really play for this year, it's really feels like it's gonna be a lot of just giving people sample sizes and see what you got for the next couple of years and how you move from there. So pitchers probably
Yeah.
won't go super deep. You might have a lot of platoons going on, and in the end of the year, it's just pay everyone, and we'll see you in 2026.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, a lot of what bad teams have to do is they just have to they have to figure out what they have and what guys have a future. Um, Edwards, despite me not recognizing his picture pre-show,
Rude.
um, he, I kind of like the, build or idea of a guy like him. Now I know baseball now is all about power and stuff like that. But in 70 games last year, as you said, like the numbers batting wise, he also had 31 stolen bases. So this is a guy that has speed, and I think they're a
Lee
little bit
Gordon 2.0 for my
right.
team.
I was gonna say they're a little bit of a lost art, but those speedy on base guys, like in a good lineup, can be great. Now, in a lineup like this, not that valuable. But if you have some guys like hit the ball out of the park, hit the ball and play, get him running, it's great. But they need to build something around him. As you said, Norby, maybe does he take the next step? There's just a lot of question marks with this roster. Like there's just not really any household names, to be honest. And
Well,
hey,
yeah, there's just you got nothing. I can't even tell you really what to expect from anyone coming up. So
yeah,
good
and like
luck.
I mean, Jesus Sanchez, they've kind of been holding out hope for a while that he was going to be like their superstar, and he's just not performed either. So, how much of a leash do you give him? I don't know, but it is going to be continue to be a tough road, I should say, for Miami fans. I have nothing else to add on this team. Again, I really had more to talk about with the White Sox than these guys. It's when you look at this roster, there's a lot that you have questions
Playing in the
about.
East is going to be fun for everyone else in the East.
Yeah,
Ideally, that's
that's
how the
that.
Marlins honestly
It
probably got their
helps.
strength in the past. Was that for some reason they were always the pesky team that could stay at par with everyone else in the division, and then when it came to facing everyone else in baseball, they were garbage. This is like the first year in a while where I'm like, if we lose like 2 games against this team, we should be like embarrassed. It is that bad how
Philly
it looks.
Philly always has a problem in Miami though. Like I feel like they always don't they never play well there.
What's your point?
Now, again, this roster you would hope that is better, but
I don't know. Phillies have bad numbers against players they don't know anything about, and I think this is a team built on players they don't know anything about. They built this team purely just to mess with the Phillies. That's the whole point. Apparently,
yeah,
that's what it is.
they got an incognito mode
How
team.
about this?
Crazy.
That's a good way of
Um
putting it.
yeah. that is all for us here. Not much to say here, but that is all for us here at
No,
Big
we need to
League
stretch this out. We need
Breakdowns.
a longer episode.
No, we do not.
No.
Please.
Let's
You can
talk about the
follow us.
Dodgers again.
You can follow us on Twitter at BL_breakdowns, Big League Breakdowns everywhere else. Make sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel for more content as we will be moving on to Milwaukee next and the Brewers, the NL Central champions of 2024. But yeah, that is all. As we continue on our journey, we will see you next time.
You don't have to wear your seatbelt in Miami.
Go fishing.